I'm never gonna get a 5,295. I'm sorry. That's I don't know if that's ever gonna get up there.
If I'm good at anything, it's big TBRs. I'm gonna get you there.
Okay.
And welcome back to another episode of Romancing the Monsters. I'm Em.
Hi, I'm S.
I'm Seth.
And today we have a special-ish episode in which we are going to talk about not all, but 3 each of our most underrated but favorite books out there. Mm-hmm. Did that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially the format is pretty much the same as our catch up and chill episodes if you've seen those or listened to those. So we'll just go around and each of us will talk about a book. And I hope you will enjoy it. Before we do that, I want to remind you that if you listen to our podcast and are not subscribed or following our podcast already, please consider doing so. Sounds desperate every time, but we just have to self-promo because the thing is, whether it's on YouTube or SoundCloud or Spotify or whatever, it turns out a lot of people are listening but not subscribing. So this is us pleading with you.
No, also, if you want captions as you listen along, YouTube is a good place for that. So we're also, like Marge said, we're on YouTube. Follow along with our captions. Sometimes they're a bit wonky, but overall they're really good for the episodes. S has been putting those episodes up day after day, and
yeah, we're trying to get caught up with present time on there because we did start the YouTube.
We're almost there.
Almost, yeah. I think like 4 episodes behind.
I think maybe 3. Maybe
by the time this comes up, it might honestly be
caught
up. Yeah. All right, so. Who wants to start? I'm very excited about this. I actually really am. I don't know why. I'm just excited
a bit nervous
to share
because I was like, what in case I did the assignment wrong?
What was the assignment? Now I'm doubting myself. What was the assignment?
I mean, I don't know. It was just finding underrated books that we enjoyed or like want to put out into the world and like get more people to read it.
I just love that every single time we give ourselves rules to follow or else it's mayhem over here. So we have to have rules and guidelines to follow and every single time we break them. So I'm just curious to see who's going to break them. I know I might be breaking
you guys already know I broke them. So stop acting like you didn't. Yes. Okay. I did 2 series. Do you feel better? I finally broke the rules.
Well, I might have broken them a little bit too. I don't know. You guys will have to let me know about that. Anywho, who wants to start?
Do you want to start since you're excited?
Oh, God. Okay, fine. All right. First book on my list is called Arrows Through Archer by Nash Summers. And S is like nodding her head.
I need to read this book.
Well, I mean, fun story. Before we start, I actually bought this book for S years ago, and she still has not read it. So this is mostly just me trying to, like, do some, messaging that, like, put it out there that she has to read the book.
It's a sign that I need to read it.
So it's by Nash Summers, as I said, and essentially it's about Archer and Mallory. To preface this with a couple tropes that are in this book, you have romance, first of all. Second of all, it is a age gap romance. Third of all, it is best friend's father romance. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it's hurt comfort. I love that trope, hurt comfort. And it's obviously slightly forbidden, you could say, because, best friend's dad.
Sorry, pause. What do you mean by hurt comfort? What kind of trope is that? Can you
hurt comfort is like when one of the characters is either went through something like mentally, like some, how would I explain that? Like hurt comfort can be physical or emotional, And then it's essentially that someone else, like the other the love interest, is there to help them through it.
Oh, okay.
That's hurt comfort. And it is set in Canada, which when does that ever happen? In Banff, of all places, as well. So, like, you get the mountains, you get the wilderness, you get the trees and the snow, the skiing. Anywho, so story is Archer is in college, if I remember correctly. And his parents died. They were actually murdered, so it's like a really tragic story. They were murdered, but he's trying to, you know, continue on with life, but he's really struggling. He's partying a lot. He kind of lost the will, if you will, of living. And he has this friend who is like, there's this break, probably like spring break or something. And his friend is like, all right, do you want to come back home with me? His best friend says that. Do you want to come back home with me? So he does, because obviously he has like no one else and nowhere to go to. So they go, and he meets the best friend's dad, and like they kind of hit it off, but not like in a romantic way. It's kind of just like, oh, your dad's actually pretty cool, and like I get along with him type of thing.
Yeah.
But then Archer gets hurt. I don't remember what exactly happens, but he can't walk for a period of time, and like he needs physical therapy. I think he like breaks his leg or something like that. And he needs physical therapy for that, but obviously, and he needs someone to take care of his needs and of him, because he can't do it for that period. And he doesn't have family. So like his best friends is like, well, my dad works from home. He's like a carpenter or something like that. And he's like, he works from home, so like he could take care of you. So Archer goes back to Banff to live there so that the father can take him to all his physical therapy sessions and like help him with, you know, food and whatever. And from there unravels a really sweet story where you have Mallory who's like helping Archer, you know, work through his grief. They're both like sort of working through things and helping each other out of it. And it's sweet, but also like angsty, and like I said, a little bit forbidden. I feel like there are different kinds of angst, but this is like, it's so sweet, and you yearn for those two to be together so much that it's angsty. Does that make sense? It's that.
And there's also the angst where like it's like in their internal dialogue and like their wishes and desires and everything they feel for that person, you know, causes the butterflies, the angst butterflies, as we call it here. To take root. And it sounds really angsty and like really up my alley.
And it's a very delicious age gap.
Another book going on my list. Like, what the heck is this?
It's been on my list. It's been on my list for a long time.
It better be, girl.
Yeah.
Because I bought it for you.
It's sitting pretty on my shelf over there.
I mean, sometimes I read books and I'm like, this book has S's name all over it. And that was one of them. And then she never read it. So I'm just going to pretend that doesn't hurt.
It's coming, Marge, I promise. The time will come soon.
Why do you think it's considered quote-unquote underrated?
Well, the thing is, I don't know, because the book itself, all right, there's, I believe, 2,000 ratings on Goodreads. So that's pretty low, I would say.
Yeah.
But it has a 4.3 average rating, which out of 2,000, I find is pretty high, personally, because it's like, with books that are, you know, really well known, I find that it's actually easier to have a higher rating just because of the hype. People are more likely to rate a book higher than they probably should, just because they're like, oh, but it's this author that I love, and blah, 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 blah. So when an underrated book has such a high rating for me, I'm like, wow. Nash Summers is not an author that's super well known. I mean, I used to read quite a bit of romance, and even within the romance genre, I don't really see their name pop up that much.
I hope this reaches a few readers here, because it sounds really good. I think I might add it to my list of never-ending, books that I need to read. It just keeps growing at this point. With you girls, it just keeps growing.
We're trying to get you at our level of. Like,
I'm never gonna get
to
a
read books on
5,295. I'm sorry. That's. I don't know if that's ever gonna get up there.
If I'm good at anything, it's big TBRs. I'm gonna get you there.
Okay. Okay. So, as you said, your recommendation had about like 2,000. Mine are more, I would say, in the like 15,000 to a bit more, but like I still consider them underrated, quote unquote underrated. At least it wasn't underrated for me because I like fangirled over it like throughout my university years. So it's a series, so it's my first time breaking the rules. Okay, I got it. Okay. Anyways, so the series is called the Heart series by L.H. Cosway. So I don't know if you're familiar with this author. She lives in Ireland, and she writes some really great books. She also did some books with Penny Reid.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the series that I'm talking about is one of her more, I would say, better known series, but I still consider it underrated. So the first book is called Six of Hearts. And the series has a bit like, I think it has like 6 books in it, but I'm only going to be talking about like the first 3 because those are the ones that really resonated and like really hit. Anyways, so it starts off with Jay, who's an illusionist, and he's off to get revenge. And he uses his skills to further himself in getting his revenge. And we find out his family died in a fire, including his brother, and he just really wants to get justice and like bring down the person that caused it. And the main girl, Matilda, is a fashion designer who wants like this big epic love, and like he starts living with her and her dad, and like obviously things get going, but like for me it was more so book 2 and like book 3 that really got me. Like book 1 was really good, but like book 2, you guys know I love the tortured hero, you know I love the one that's like going through some trauma. So we find out that the brother isn't dead. And he's been living his life in a circus, and he is so troubled, so traumatized from the fire when he was a kid. He's scarred everywhere, burn marks, and he knew of his brother being alive, but he wanted nothing to do with him. And yeah, he just becomes obsessed with fire, it becomes his act in the circus. He's a fire breather. Marge, this is where the fun times happen in the bedroom. His obsession with fire also takes place in the bedroom as well.
How?
I mean, you just gotta read it to find out. But he meets this girl, Lily, who wants to run away with the circus and like pursue her dream of painting. And like, he thinks the life in the circus is very like not for her. It's very dangerous, and like things happen. But he ends up taking up her role, like the role of like her protector, and obviously he ends up falling in love with her despite everything that's going on in his head. She becomes his first friend of sorts, and like things kind of spiral out of control, and like obviously like there's this big intrigue about like, is he gonna meet his brother, is he not gonna meet his brother, are they gonna reconcile, what's gonna happen. And yeah, it's just like, if you really are into like a circus setting, then I highly recommend this book, as well as like the third book, which is like, for me, this is my absolute favorite. I've read this book so many times to the point where like my paperback is kind of broken at this point. So we met this guy in the second book, and he was kind of known as like the circus drunkard. Like he's always just drinking and like never really there, but he always had like this one picture that he never showed anyone. And like he just looks at it and like cries or whatever. Like he's just really like torn up about what happened. But like, yeah, you just kind of like look past him because he just looks like the crazy man in the circus. So we start there, and then we cut back, and it's a giant flashback, and you find out he was once an executive on Wall Street, and like the main girl was like applying to be his assistant, and obviously like they're the main couple of this book, and like things happen where like he feels the need to escape and run away, and like it jumps to 5 years later, and obviously they're not together. She's moved on with her life, and he's become like I said, the alcoholic, or like someone that's really dependent on the alcohol and like the life that's in the circus. And he's not really living until he meets her again, and things kind of spiral from there. And yeah, I just really recommend it if you're in need of a romance set in the circus, and if you need some like good humor and like just a really well written story that like deals with a lot of issues, like real life issues, like alcoholism, like overcoming trauma. Like, I don't even know. I just feel like the series, at least the first 3, I don't really remember the other ones. I just feel like the first 3 are just so good. And I want to read them again now, just talking about them.
I feel like there was a time when I wouldn't have considered those underrated. But the fascinating thing about indie romance is that it goes so quick. And so many books come out that it's underrated now just because it's so old, quote unquote old now, because it came out like, what, 5-6 years ago, maybe even.
Yeah, I believe 2013.
And it was super popular when it came out. But now you don't hear anyone talk about it.
Yeah,
anymore.
that's kind of where my list is. It's like it was popular a bit back then, but now it's just like crickets. You don't hear anything about it. You don't see it. No one's really adding it to their list or anything. It's kind of like dead in a sense.
Okay, so for my first book, I'm doing Carter and Leah. It's a duet.
Ooh.
By R.J. Lewis.
Well, it's the same author that you, Mr. West or whatever that was. That was her. Okay.
It's this, same author. So this is so I'll start off. This is a childhood friends to lovers to kind of having a falling out, being distant for a few years to like reconnecting and becoming lovers again story. It's a rock star type of story in a way, but it doesn't start off like that. So it starts off with Leah. It starts off when they're like 10 and 12. So from the moment she laid eyes on Carter, like that was it for him. Like that was it for her. Like she was like in love, like she wanted him. And she wasn't shy about letting him know. And Carter, he's the type to kind of keep her at like arm's length. Like he knows that she likes him, but he doesn't want to ruin that friendship. But he's the type to like care for her if something happens. Like he's always there. They're next door neighbors, and he's always trying to protect her from her skeevy uncle and aunt. Like the uncle is like the aunt's pimp, and like they do like So Leah witnesses that. So whenever they're doing business, she goes outside and sits on the porch, and she's always watching Carter. They become friends. They become best friends. He's always protecting her. And then once things start to get really bad at home, they end up running away together. And they end up going to a friend's house, and they stay there for a little bit. They find out that Carter has like a really nice voice. So they start a band, and the band starts to get really good. So a couple years pass. Carter and Leah start to become like this thing, kind of like a friends with benefits type of. She's in love with him, and she's always told him, but he's always kept her at arm's length. Oh. And and it gets to the point where they're together behind closed doors. And then out in the open, it's like he ignores her. That's like his like little sister type of friendship type of thing.
Why do I like
and
that?
there is
the angst this is feeding me. I feel so bad for her.
Yeah, but I love it so much that she feels like there's a moment in the book that I freaking love where she's kind of like, you know what, fuck you. We're not doing this anymore. Yeah, I deserve better.
You do.
And he just kind of doesn't really understand, like, why can't we have it like this? Like, this is good. Like, this is, and she's like, nope. And they go through like this whole angsty, they become distant, and like years pass, and like he becomes like this really huge rock star. And I love it because it's a dual point of view where it's mostly her. That. Yeah, it's mostly her, and then you get like his points of view. And it's kind of like, it's very short, like you get into like, it's like kind of poetic, and like his chapters like really regretful of the time that he didn't really appreciate her. It's really good. This is one of the series that I wish I could reread.
Okay, I want to reread it like now.
I want to reread it. Yeah, it's really good. I seriously add it, read it.
I'm not looking at you. I just think S really sells books so well. Okay,
you
continue.
think so? I feel like Okay, so
No,
let me
you
see what
honestly
else.
are talking about it like it's actually happening, and it's making me so invested that I was like, wait, this is a book? So I gotta go read it.
Well, because she's so detailed about it that it literally feels like you're reading the beginning of the book.
No, but she gives you like the smallest detail and she reels
Yeah.
it back in, and she's like,
True.
wait, you thought? I'm not giving you it all. Okay, continue.
Okay, and then, so this is what I love about this story and the way the author writes, because she kind of, the way she narrates the story kind of makes you feel like she's talking to you in a way. I don't know if that makes sense. And I feel like I've read other authors that have tried to do that, where the narrator's talking to the reader and it kind of just doesn't flow.
So
it
she's
doesn't,
kind of retelling the story to the reader?
kind of in a way, yeah. Because it starts off with her saying, like, I've been in love with Carter since I was 10 years old, type of thing. So you feel included in the story, and you feel like a friend is kind of talking to you, and like, you know, also this is one of the stories where I wish the heroine was real. Like, I would love to be friends with her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
love when
I don't
that
know.
happens. Like when you connect with the characters so much, you kind of like
Yeah.
need them to be real so that you can actually talk to them. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
when that happens.
Carter and Leah by R.G. Lewis.
Okay,
Add it to the list, Seth. Add it to the
I
list.
will. It might be my my book too, because I'm going away to like this wine tasting area tomorrow. So hopefully, I can read that. It's about a 2-hour drive, so. I'm
If
gonna
you
read
read
it.
every book you say that for, you'd be reading 10 books a day, girl.
Okay, no, but this one really, really just like makes me want to read it right now. But I have to finish Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. So
Are you almost done with that? Sorry, just real quick.
yeah, I'm almost done, and
Yeah?
I'm like eating. I'm
Okay.
eating it up. I love it. Like
Coming soon in our next Catch Up and Chill. Seth will be talking about this book. Can I just say that, like, I'm not a fan of insta love. I think none of us are. But I will say that one instance where it usually works is if it happens when the main characters are kids. Because then it's like it makes sense, right? Like we've talked about like how you grow up and you become an adult and you're aware of societal pressures and like you have this like burden of what are people going to think of me? What are they going to think of them? Blah, blah, blah. That kids don't have. So like it's more believable to have kids be like, I just like Will from math. You know? Like,
Yeah.
like it's more believable. And then for whatever reason, like when it's stories about them growing up and like developing a relationship, a romantic relationship, I can believe it more. Does that make sense?
no, it does.
So, but then again, like I never read childhood friends to lovers, so then I'm a farce.
I see. I try to say I don't like that trope, but I somehow end up reading it.
Right? Well,
Yeah.
And that's how I am too. Like it's a type of trope that I don't go looking for.
yeah.
But like I'll try out
finds
certain
me.
authors.
Yeah.
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 Definitely. Yeah.
well, it's the exceptions. Like you have tropes that you don't like, but for whatever reason, there's always like that one or two books in that trope that you're like, but I really liked that one though.
That
like
one,
if it's
yeah.
done that way, I like it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we shall all be adding that book to our TBR. Childhood friends to lovers and all that. Okay, so the next book on my list is one that might be breaking the rules. I'm not sure. It's The Surviving Trace by Calia.
Oh.
I'm
okay.
unsure if it's breaking the rules because it's not technically super underrated within the indie genre, but I'm thinking like to our listeners who might be reading more like trade pub books or a mixture of both, it's probably not a very well-known book outside of indie publishing, right? All right, so The Surviving Trace by Calia is about Serene and Etienne. It's a time-traveling book. So it's about Serene, who owns an antiques store, and she finds a box with pictures in it. And one of the pictures has 4 men on it, and one of the guys is like this really stern guy that, you know, she's kind of like, oh, he's ugly, whatever. But this guy, she saw him in a dream. So she's like, what the fuck? Why is the guy that I saw in my dream on this picture? If I remember correctly, she like becomes really fascinated / obsessed, a little bit obsessed with this picture, like figuring out what it is, where it's coming from, blah, blah, blah. And one night she goes to sleep and she's transported back to 1912 in the house of this man, Etienne. And he thinks she's his wife because she looks exactly like his wife and has the exact same name, but she is not his wife. So anyways, it's just really quite angsty. Obviously she has to prove that she's from the future, and then like they have to figure it out, and then like they fall in love, and like there's the whole thing, like it's weirdly like marriage in trouble / but they were never married to begin with. But they are, but they're not. And Etienne, oh my god,
he was hot. I really liked his character.
He really
from
was.
what I remember.
I have no words. I have no words. There's one scene in this book that's, well, first of all, there's the dance scene, which if you read the book, you know. But there's one scene, and there's like non-sexual gestures in books that I find really hot. Really, really hot. And this book has one of them, and without context, it's a scene in which Etienne puts 2 of his fingers into the back of her collar, the collar of her shirt, and pulls her back towards his lower stomach. And for whatever reason, that's the hottest thing I've ever read. And so, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to tell you other than Calla Reid is a really great writer. This series is interesting. It has everything you could possibly want from it. I don't know that it's the most historically accurate series, but if that doesn't bother you, then that's not an issue. But there's a bunch of side characters that are really interesting, and she's currently writing books for them. She really expanded upon that whole world. And I just think that Serene was a really, really great character as well. And their chemistry together was literally off the charts.
Yes, agreed.
I just feel like also maybe if you're into Outlander, time travel into the past, this could be also something that calls to you. So yeah. And it's also really sexy. This book was really good in that front too. Is it my turn? Yes, it is. So I decided to only talk about one of the books this time, because I kind of, looking back on it, I feel like the first book was pretty mainstream and it was like read by like almost everyone that I know. So it's a series by Natasha Anders and it's called Unwanted, but I'm going to be talking about the second book. So The Unwanted Wife was book 1, and that was, I think everyone more or less read it. But like I just feel like the second book it kind of like slipped under the radar. So book 1 was about like Sandro, who was forced to marry a girl, and like I don't know if you've read it, right?
Bitch ass Sandro.
He's one of those.
Yeah, he's an asshole, and you just want to punch his face in. But then like he does a good grovel, and you're like, ugh.
I tried reading it, but I wasn't in the mood. I was like, no, you fucking asshole, not today.
No, okay, so this is my thing.
Not today.
Okay. Let me just say, I feel like this author, Natasha Anders, does such a good job of, like, they act like assholes, sure, but I feel like it's more so off-page, like, before the book starts. And then, like, by that point, the female lead has already clocked out of the relationship, and she's like, I'm done. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't want it. And, like, it's up to the man to, like, build the relationship back to what it was, or even better, obviously better. So, like, okay, I'm going on to the second book. So the second book is called A Husband's Regret, and it's between Bronwyn and Bryce. And so she was once, married to, like, this great guy, and then all of a sudden he no longer wants her. And it's, especially after she told him that she's pregnant with his child, he just tells her, like, to go, like, get out. And then, like, 2 years later, we see her struggling to make ends meet, and, like, her husband, Bryce, finds her, and he's unexpectedly upset and, like, hateful towards her, and, like, no one really knows what happened. So we finally see that they both have different perceptions of, like, what happened 2 years ago, and, like, now he wants his daughter, and like 2 years have passed, and like this bitch didn't even like, he told her to get out, and like, anyways, it's just like a good story in the sense where like if you want a good grovel, like a good man crawling on broken glass to win his woman back, hands down the series is for you. Like I don't even know what else. The angst payoff is amazing, and there's also something else that happened to him that kind of makes him hateful towards her because he believes that she was kind of like the cause of it. Anyways, I just couldn't stop eating it up because of how well written it was, and how like these men like are complete, like, you know, killing themselves. They're just killing themselves because they messed up this relationship, like with their one person that they could ever love. They're complete assholes, but we somehow root for them. So if this is something that you like, then I highly recommend these books.
Well, we know what I'm reading this weekend.
Love it. I love it. So my next book is called, and I feel like I have a pattern this time around.
As Queen of Patterns.
I know.
It's Hawthorne and Heathcliff by R.K. Ryals. It's a coming-of-age story / I guess you can say friends to lovers. It's about this girl named Claire Macy, but she goes by Hawthorne. She was abandoned by her parents at a very young age, and she was raised by her uncle. And then we have the hero, who's Max Vincent, but he's referred to as Heathcliff.
Is it like a Wuthering Heights retelling?
I've never read, but she mentions like in the beginning, like the way he looks, like how broody he is, how everybody like wants to be near him but kind of give him space type of character. So she refers to him as Heathcliff from Wuthering Heights. So I don't know. I've never read Wuthering Heights, so I wouldn't know.
Girl, you're lucky you never had to read it.
Okay.
Oh God. That says a lot. So she has like kind of like abandonment issues where she doesn't want to get close to anyone because she feels like they always leave her. And for him, he feels like he's kind of being suffocated in this small town where he kind of wants to get out, and like his parents have like expectations for him to take over like the family business like everybody else, and he doesn't want that. I love this book because it has like a really deep meaning, and like it has like a lot of like metaphors. And I kind of want to like she uses like a metaphor of like shoes in this book, and I want to read a little snippet.
Oh yes,
to
please
you
do.
Girls, just to kind of get the feel. So it starts off with him. He leaned against the shed, the muscles in his arms pushing against his rolled up sleeves. Why won't you look at me? I swallowed. I know what you look like. And then he goes, and yet you won't look at me. Why? My lips curled, a smile as much as a surprise to my words. And she says, because I don't commit to faces. He chuckles, you only commit to shoes. And my smile slips. And then she says, faces leave, I mumbled. Shoes walk away. You learn a lot about people by what they wear on their feet. I'd rather see what's going to leave than what I'd miss if it left. There was a long silence, and my gaze found his shoes. I was waiting for him to leave, for his boots to stride past me and my odd words, but they didn't. And if the shoes don't walk away, he asked. My heart jumped. Then the face matters once it's earned. And it's like so cute, and like they have like this like thing together for like a few years, but they know it's gonna end and he's gonna leave, and like they don't want to get too attached. And so like something happens, you know, a few years pass, they lose contact, and then like they reunite, and like it's like very a little angsty, and like there's like a little sexy scene when he comes back, and like
Wait, didn't you say it was coming of age YA?
Coming of age. So you see them grow up, and like they starts off, I think their senior year, when a few years pass, they're like in their 20s. She already has like her little business career, and he goes off, I think. I don't want to say too much, but so when he comes back, like there's like a moment that they have, and I'm just like, oh, it's a little sexy, it's so cute. But highly recommend Hawthorne and Heathcliff, R.K. Ryals.
I feel like separation is sometimes annoying in a book, but fuck do the reunion scenes feel so good.
Yeah. And like, I love it.
There's so many reunion scenes where like these two characters are gonna meet again, and you're waiting for it, and there's the angst of waiting for it, and the yearning that comes with it, and then they do, and it's like
No, I agree. And like going back to, the book that I not just talked about, King of Hearts, the circus one, that reunion scene and like the way it built up, like honestly it had me like crying, and like I'm like breathing so hard, I'm like, this needs to happen like right now. And like, yeah, I highly recommend, if you want a good reunion scene and everything else like that comes with it, I really recommend that book. I don't know why I'm going back to it, but I just feel like that does a really good reunion scene.
I think Arrows Through Archer has some separation as well, so
I feel like that's our theme today, separation.
Separation.
Because King of Hearts had it, and then A Husband's Regret had it, and then
I guess the surviving trace, you could say she's gonna go back to her own time at some point.
Yeah. We really have a theme today.
Yeah.
It's sad because there's so many talented writers out there that unfortunately don't get the platform that they deserve, because the truth is that romance is all books, it's a business, but especially in romance and how fast the industry grows, you have to put money into promoting your books, or else unfortunately they're gonna go poof and nobody's gonna know about them, because next week there's a bajillion other books coming out and that's what the readers are gonna be looking at. So I just find it really sad, because it's kind of like Nash Summers is like, I don't see those books promoted anywhere.
Yeah.
Or her name. I want to see these authors' names.
Me too.
Brought up in conversations.
Right. I don't even know how I came across that book to begin with. It was probably in one of the romance Facebook groups that I'm in, which is a great way to find those gems. Like, if you are looking for underrated books, go find Facebook groups that are for that specific trope. But it's sad because they're great writers and they just nobody knows about them.
I agree.
All right, are we moving on to our
last recommendation?
Unless some of us here have honorable mentions.
No
honorable mentions, none today.
I love that resounding no.
I'm making sure we're on track.
Yeah.
Not today.
Okay, so last book on my list is a book that I believe Steph has read and she didn't love it. So we're just going to ignore her right now. Starting now. She doesn't exist.
Hey!
The book is Forever Right Now by Emma Scott, who is one of my favorite writers personally. And it's also one of my favorite books. So the story is about Darlene, who is an aspiring dancer, and she just got out of jail for drug possession, and she's trying to get her life back together. She's like really positive about it. She's like, all right, I made mistakes. I'm owning up to them, but I want to figure out who I am now and what my life is going to look like moving forward. So she moves from New York to San Francisco and, try to start fresh. And there she meets her new neighbor, Sawyer, who is a hot single dad of a baby. And the baby's called Olivia, and it's the cutest little baby ever. He's a single dad. He's struggling a lot because he's trying to finish his law degree, and also he has to pass the, what's it called? Like the exam for lawyers? The
bar?
Yeah. And anyway, he's struggling a lot. He's a little bit like Grumpy Sunshine-esque. Because at first he's really like closed off to Darlene, which is like a burst of sunshine in his life pretty much. And but Darlene, sort of slowly makes her way into his life, and she starts taking care of Olivia, and slowly but surely they sort of grow to have this relationship. But what I really, really love about this book is Darlene's personal journey of self-empowerment and like her reclaiming herself and who she is and like accepting that, yeah, I've made mistakes, but I'm not going to let them define who I am, and I am going to move forward. And like her strength and willpower to constantly strive to be better and do better and not go back to the way that, you know, it was. And I just admired her so much through the whole story, and I felt so much, and I was so connected with what was going on. And while this book had like one of the plot twists that really threw me on my fucking ass, I just think that Emma Scott, like all of her books, and again, this is an author that I'm like, I love her, but also I've only read 2 books by her and she has a massive backlist, so like, I'm a liar. She's so good with the emotional journey of her characters. Like, that's where she shines for me. And
Yeah.
we all have like those authors that it just feels like they speak our language. You know what I mean? Like, they might not connect, like other readers might not connect as much with that author, but you do. And I feel like Emma Scott is one of them for me. Nikki James would be another one for me. Like, I just, whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but their writing just speaks to my soul directly.
Yeah.
And their stories, it's like they can't write a bad book because I'm always going to connect with it no matter what. So yeah, I feel like it's a really beautiful story of self-empowerment and like reclaiming yourself after you've made a mistake. Because like, it doesn't always have to be a dark past that like, you know, you were put into and like had to survive. Like, sometimes you're young, dumb, and you do dumbass shit that you regret. And it's like, but you're allowed to move forward.
Exactly. You should be allowed to move forward and move past it.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I could do, like, I like hot single dads too. I just feel like I don't read enough of them.
Yeah.
All right. My last recommendation is kind of inspired by our movie night, Marge Eye Dragon, which is a Russian film. And we were talking about shifter romances, like dragon shifter romances, and I feel like our go-to is always Ruby Dixon, which, you know, is the amazing author of Ice Planet Barbarians. But in this case, I have Beck MacMaster, her shifter dragon romances.
Oh, I haven't read those.
Yeah, okay. So I've only read the first one, but it really reminded me of the movie in the sense where, like, it's filled with, like, Icelandic mythology. And if you're a fan of, like, Scandinavia or, like, their mythology, this author really did her research and built, like, a really good world. And it's just, like, filled with, like, wonderful prose and just, like, I don't know, I just loved the first book. Like, I think I loved more, like, the world building, and the couple was more of, like, secondary for me, I think. Like, I liked them, but I felt like the story itself was really interesting. So we start off with a girl named Freya who can't afford to pay, like, I guess it's like taxes or like a tithe to the dragon. And they know about a dragon living in the mountains. And they always have to pay, like, each resident of the village has to pay like a lamb or like some livestock because the dragon needs to eat. And then her lamb gets taken by the dragon, and she needs the dragon because she's living basically on her last dollar or last coin. And she embarks on a journey to save her lamb because she wants it, okay? And Rurik, which is a dragon shifter, he, like, actually wants her. He's never felt this way before, and he wants her because of her courage. And also, well, this series also has like fated mates. Yeah, but since dragons are feared and hunted by many, the only time he can really claim her as his own is obviously when he's in his mortal form, which makes him completely vulnerable, and they kind of get to know each other as he's a dragon. And I don't know, I just feel like it really stood out because Rurik was such a good character. Like, he was patient, and, like, he was not what you would expect from a dragon, you know? Like, he was a very patient man. Like, he was still alpha, like, very alpha. But he had those instances where he was soft, and like I really, really enjoyed that in his character at least. But I was really curious about book 2, and I'm like you, I never went back to the series, and I don't know why, but I feel like the movie kind of like pushed me back into like this mindset, and I really want to read more of it. So book 2 has been like on my list for a while, and it's about a dragon hunter, going to hunt a dragon who happens to be his wife, he presumed dead.
What? Yeah. Oh shit.
I know. Yeah. And I don't know, I just feel like it's different in the sense where it's set in the past, like it's ancient Scandinavia. So that could appeal to those who like historical romances with a dash of fantasy in it.
I feel like we've neglected dragons on Romancing the Monsters, which is a terrible sin that we should remedy.
Yeah, and we've touched so many other monsters, and dragons happen to be one of my favorites.
We've touched all of them.
I wish. It's a wish of mine.
That's the sad truth. I wish.
Yeah.
All right, S.
So my last book is
Friends to Lovers.
Yes.
Oh my god.
And I love how it's a trope that you don't necessarily care for, but it happens to be in all 3 of your recommendations.
In all 3, yeah. So I'm trying to push the trope of friends to lovers isn't bad. It's actually good if you find authors that, you know.
Well, okay. Here's a theory then. Here's a theory. We don't like the trope because all the good ones are underrated and we just don't know about them.
That is a good theory.
Yeah.
All right. What's the book, S? So we can all add it to our TBRs.
So it's The Mason List by S.D. Hendrickson. I read this a few years ago and I loved it. I freaking loved it. Like to the point where I think it would be like a good movie or a mini series.
Ooh.
I can definitely see it on screen. So it's a coming of age story / friends to lovers. It's about Alex Tanner, and you see her from the age of 6 to like 26. Okay, so her mom is dying from cancer. Her dad loses his job, and they're living out of their car, and they're parked at the hospital. So it could be easier for the dad to visit the mom. Yeah, and our heroine Alex, she has like this anger and like frustration of like her situation, and she's like very angry. Her and her dad, like their life changes one day when someone knocks on their car window, and they're offered by the Mason family, they're offered a place to stay at their ranch for work and whatnot, and she hates that because she thinks it's charity.
Oh.
She hates
like
it, and like
pity
she's
money.
and it takes her like a long time to kind of accept that this is good for them and this is a good family and good friends. And we have Jessup Mason. He's like the sweetest boy, country boy, very well mannered. He tries to be her friend, and like they grow up together and they go like on these like crazy adventures. He falls in love with her, and she's one of the stubborn ones where she's just like, no, like tries to push him away. I don't want anything with you. We can ruin our friendship. And the story is told in a way, it goes like from past to present, where you read the present and like something happened and you're just like, what the hell? So you're just kind of like on like the edge of your seat trying to find out like, why is the present the way it is and what led up to that moment. Yeah, so it's really good. It's angsty, it's sad, it's emotional.
See, I'm not someone that usually likes flashbacks in their stories, and like I don't like when they do the constant switch back and forth. I'm not someone that likes that, but I just feel like some authors do it in a way that you understand it, or like you like the way that it's done, or sometimes authors just like put it in there when they could have just told the story in like a linear way.
I think the difference is if there's an actual intrigue at the center of the story, and that intrigue is what's explored in the past and it affects the present, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But when authors when it's character backstory and just character backstory and like explaining the traumatic thing that the character underwent when they were younger type of thing.
Yeah.
I find that disappointing because to me, it's much more powerful when you have the character that went through what they went through and they actually re-explore that memory in the present and open up and tell their love interest about it. And that's how we know what happened to them, because it means more, because they're actually opening up and telling what happened. So yeah, I don't like it when it's like a flashback for us to see, because I don't know.
To try to understand like their emotions and feelings.
Yeah,
and
like it
the
should
inner
be
dialogue
on
type
page.
of
Like
thing.
you should be able to see why they are the way that they are just based on how they are in the present. Like you shouldn't have to explain to me why they are like this.
And then there's also the flashbacks where, like, friends to lovers, in a sense, where, like, they had a past together, and, like, I don't know, once they're in the present and they're not together, or, like, they're not anywhere close to being friends, like, they just constantly do the flashbacks. Like, I'm not really a fan of that. I'd rather that be done, like, at the beginning, and then, like, you know, we see them now, like, after we relive their past.
Yeah, do a time jump.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, man, some readers hate time jumps. And I think that's
Really?
why authors don't do it. I
personally prefer that.
If a book starts and the characters are young, some readers are literally turned off right away. They don't want to read about kids growing up.
Huh. Okay. I could see that. I mean, you're going into hoping to read an adult romance, and then...
I don't know, man. Readers, especially romance readers, are particular about what they like and what they don't like. So I feel like I struggled a little bit to put books on my list, and I realized in the course of doing this episode that the reason why is because I've actually been the luckiest one out of us three, and we've talked about a lot of my underrated books on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I struggled because I couldn't figure out what to put on my list. I had so many ideas and, like, so many books that I wanted to talk about, and I had to limit myself by a lot.
Out of everything we talked about, if you had to pick 2 books you're allowed to add to your TBR, you're only allowed 2. Which ones would you pick?
From all of ours?
Yeah. Well, except the ones that you talked about yourself.
Okay.
So I'll go first. I think I'll add the Nash Summers book.
Oh, okay.
Right? And I think I'll also add the duet you talked about that I want to read on my ride to my wine tasting thing.
The S's duet?
Yeah. What was it called again?
Carter and Leah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Carter and Leah, and then the Nash Summers book.
I think I would say the Unwanted Wife and the sequel to that.
A Husband's Regret.
Yeah, because I hate myself. And then I would probably say I'm hesitating between that same duet and the Dragon books.
Yeah.
What about you, S?
For me, it would be the Magician Circus one that you talked about.
Yes.
Seth. That one, the second and third book.
Yeah.
I'll add that can be one.
Yeah.
I'll add that as one.
Because we love to cheat.
Yeah. And then for Marge, I think I would do Emma Scott's Is It Forever right now?
Yeah.
She's refusing to read Arrows to Archer, I swear to God.
But no, I can't say that one because it's already on my TBR and it's making its way up, Marge.
Yeah, it's
sitting there.
Technically, she has 3 of them. You know, she can add 3. Well, she already has one, so
it's
that one's
there,
a given.
Fine. Fine.
All right, that's good.
All right. So, I hope you found a couple of recs in what we talked about. If you want to let us know what are the 2 books that you would add to your TBR or have already added to your TBR, you can find us online. On Twitter, we are the RTM Pod. On Instagram, we are Romancing the Monsters Podcast. You can also email us at romancingthemonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and we have a TikTok, which is Romancing the Monsters Pod. We are, as we said in the beginning, also on YouTube, so if you need or want captions, you can find us on there with a cute little graphic that S has done for us. And you can also find me on both Twitter and Instagram at Frozen Lovers. Ooh, I almost. You saw that
I was waiting for
hesitation
you
there.
Yeah. I noticed it. And you can find me on both Instagram and Twitter at ButThisBook.
And you can find me, Steph, on both Instagram and Twitter at Pros with Lows.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.